Men, what kind of low-grade sexual harassment do you face on a daily basis? I was walking downtown with a friend when two drunk girls came out of a bar, and one of them just walked up to me and shoved her hands up my shirt and started rubbing my chest. She was yelling to her friend, "This is what a real man feels like." My friend was laughing his butt off, and her friend was explaining this was breakup therapy because she'd been dumped and she was in the process of accepting there are better men out there. I laughed it off and took it as a compliment, but imagining the gender roles reversed always stuck with me. Yeah, I think the problem is that men don't seem to mind and actually enjoy it in some cases, so people don't take it seriously. So if a man gets mad because someone did this, people would think he is overreacting. Worked in bars and would constantly be groped by older women who thought it was funny. Also, as a Scottish piper, kilt lifting is a thing and honestly it needs to stop. Grow up. Also, as a Scottish piper, kilt lifting is a thing and honestly it needs to stop. Grow up. My aunt literally slapped a woman across the face for doing this crap at my cousin's wedding. My bulge was a topic of open discussion between some of the women in the office at a previous job. The kicker is that one of the women was our HR and sexual assault harassment reporter. The HR woman at my old job was caught with candid photos of guys' asses on her phone. I must have been protected by the power of ugly or just didn't notice it. I know this kind of thing happens, I guess not to me thankfully. Not really low grade, but when I used to work as a lifeguard on the beach there was lots of non-consensual touching. The two that really stick out are the middle-aged woman who walked up to me like she had a question, then got a hold of my dong through my trunks because she wanted to see how big it was, and the 16-year-old girl who backed me into my stand and shoved a Skittle into my mouth with her tongue. Surprised you never got Wendy Peppercorn. One day I got a text message from someone I didn't know, asking me to meet for dinner. I had gone to a new haircut place a few days earlier. One of the hairdressers, not the one who cut my hair, had seen me and decided it made sense to look up my phone number from the client records and ask me out. I had no idea who this was. It was so weird. I got several more messages from her before she stopped messaging me. Never went back to that hair place. Not daily, but as a cosplayer who does shirtless characters, Ace, Grimjo, Barn, I get groped a lot. Chest and arms mostly. Also my butt gets slapped, squeezed, and crotch grabs are often enough to mention too. Heck, even when I'm armored they find a way to get to me equals. Cosplay does not equal consent. It's literally writing all over the entrance of every con. A female co-worker, I tell her if she was male, she would have been fired multiple times for her behavior. She just laughs and says yeah probably. That's terrible. Sometimes I think people legitimately don't realize their behavior is unacceptable, but the fact that she's been given the opportunity to apologize and just admitted her behavior was wrong and not take it seriously is terrible. My 55-year-old co-worker somewhat resembles Ursula from The Little Mermaid. That hasn't stopped her from asking me if I think she's pretty, asking me to take her home, and telling me she sprays like a watering can. Yes, really. A woman just straight up grabbed my dong whilst I was working at a festival. My friend who knew her told me not to make scene as she was upper management. I still won't. Screw it. I recently became a father and was working on a hit TV series. A female producer who is best friends with the executive in charge thought it would be funny to grab my stomach and say, "Working on your dad bod already?" My daughter at that point was 1 week old. If I grabbed a woman's stomach and said she was fat or pregnant, I would have been fired. Well, I complained to make a point. She recently was promoted and I wasn't invited back after 5 seasons. Oh, I sent the line-produced screen grabs of her apology and was told they'd look into it. This was over a year ago, and since she was promoted, I work plenty, but it's a gross business. Try dressing in traditional Scottish kilt in a city without some woman lifting it to see if you have underwear on. We all think it's funny until a guy does it to a woman. Was going to say the same thing. You'd think wearing a kilt was a bloody invitation. Some middle-aged guest did this when I was a kid at a wedding. I was 12. Thinking back on that, it's freaking disgusting. I have been referred to HR for my voice being naturally too low. I was told I need to try and do more to be inclusive at the chat with HR about it. May your different be more inclusive. My mill assumes that men have this complete inability to control themselves and it is 100% up to women to not pursue attached men. I was not aware of this until there was a debate going on about such things at a family function when she asked me, the only non-old male at the event, to confirm her belief. The implication that men are practically wild animals and unable to control themselves is pretty insulting. My family owns a restaurant and I would help out doing the dishes and operating front of house. My mum mainly hired female waitresses for some reason and I overheard things like he's cute, I wonder what it's like to ride Asian guys, and one time, one of the girls finished their shift and I was brushing the floor near entrance. She came up to me and grabbed my balls with a lip bite. I was really uncomfortable as I had a girlfriend at the time. I stalked them on social media for a bit and I found out they were really into pop and one of them had a history of dating Asian guys. They eventually quit as they had A-levels to prepare for, equivalent to AP, and because I live in a small town, I bump into them a lot, meaning they stare whenever I walk past them. I only recently found out about the widespreading trend of fetishizing Korean guys. I keep hearing all kinds of sexual harassment stories similar to your own. Weird to think pop is inspiring this kind of abuse. I guess some people just can't tell reality from fantasy though. Getting physically and verbally assaulted by women in nightclubs and then being asked to leave because of it. Even with multiple people trying to tell bouncers what was actually happening, they'll always just pick you to throw out. That's unfortunately an economics thing more than anything else. Women in a club attract men. Men who buy drinks and throw cash around thinking they'll get laid. A club full of men does not attract women tossing around cash. Got my junk grabbed and pinched once when I was in a public transport by an older, homeless looking woman. Everyone saw what happened and didn't do nothing. I was in shock and didn't know what to do, so I just pretended nothing happened. I've had my arms groped, dong groped, and butt groped before. It's not as flattering or hot as you might think it is when you're not expecting it in the mood, it just kinda creeps you out. I've also had a woman just grab me and plant a full-on open mouth kiss straight on me, then act offended when I pulled away and basically ran from her. Never seen or talked to her before that moment. I was in the store and an old woman on a mobility scooter wanted to pass me, so I stepped to the side against the shelf. Instead of using all the free space on the other side, she starts turning closer to me as she passes, so my dong rubs all across her shoulder. She did a weird moaning sound at the same time. I posted about this on Facebook at the time and almost everyone thought it was hilarious. That is beyond creepy. Had a female work colleague sit on my lap during my lunch break asking for help, batting her eyelids. Now I wonder what would happen if I would have sat on her lap. This happened to a guy at my work. He's 50 married with 3 kids. We were having Friday drinks after work. At work, liquor retailer. The girl was about 23 and very cute. She decided to sit in his lap, in front of everyone. He got up very quickly and left. His wife sometimes worked for us, and so did his sons. He did not invite this attention. She thought it was funny. I was also going to mention the man boob comment, but used to be all the time drunk women or men would run their fingers through my beard and have some sly comment like, "I wonder if this tickles." I'm not a man, but it's something my male manager has highlighted to me. I work in a hospital as a therapist, mainly with elderly people. Old men make creepy comments or even try to touch female nurses therapists all the time, and when they do we raise it as being creepy and usually go to see him with another person. We tell the patients that it's not appropriate for them to speak to us like that. Recently there was a female patient who kept making comments about the male staff and everyone just laughed it off. No one told the female patient off. Some of the female staff even agreed and egged her on. It wasn't until my manager raised it as an issue that it made me stop and think. If the roles were reversed, we'd be taking precautions to make the female staff feel safe, but there wasn't anything like that in place for male staff. Yep, just pee me off. 32M with athletic build. At every job I've had, co-workers and customers have always openly grabbed my arms, smacked, squeezed my butt, and made comments about my appearance that would get me fired if I said them to women. I worked at a quasi-governmental agency and we hired a young guy fresh out of college. The director, who is a woman, walked in the room one day, walked up behind him, put her hands on his shoulders and literally started rubbing his chest. This was like 3 years ago. He just sat there frozen like a deer in headlights. I kinda lost my crap and said what if he was female and a male walked up behind her and started rubbing her shoulders like that. She looked at me like I had 2 heads. I didn't stay at that job very long. Holy crap. Hopefully neither did that guy. Older dudes always assume I want to talk about sex. I was in a golf league with my dad's buddies and they always asked me about my sex life and made jokes that the beer cart girl wanted me. One time one of the guys pulled out his phone and went on his granddaughter's Facebook and tried to get me to say she was sexy. I wouldn't call it sexual harassment, but women just touching my hair without asking happens all the time. I have really long hair but I can't imagine most women would be okay if some guy just started playing with their hair at a bar. If they just ask my permission I'm usually cool with it. The worst was the chick who grabbed my braid and started yanking me around. Thankfully 4 women rescued me. I don't even know why that chick was pee at me. She was just pee. I had long hair and extremely drunk. I almost had to punch her. It was so confusing. I've had some weird experiences too. I was eating in a pizza ranch with my dad as a 17-year-old and one of the waitresses walked up behind me and just grabbed my hair and commented on how nice it was. This happened as I had just taken a huge bite of pizza. It was so awkward. My dad was like UHH. Do you know her? She was cute and I was really flattered but at the same time WTF. As a person who is black and usually wears their hair out natural I can say this is 100% true, especially if you're a boy of color with natural curly hair, cause then girls will just constantly try to touch you since they think it's okay for some reason, when it's not. I used to be a butcher when I was in my 20s. Every day was full of housewives making sexual innuendos like I can't wait to wrap my lips around your sausage or I really look forward to getting my hands on your rump. They also seemed keen to up the ante every time too. Every single day. I just smiled and carried on, but it was always uncomfortable. No idea why it is completely acceptable to them. I don't imagine they were like that to many other people. I can't wait to crush the skulls of your enemies with my dong, Sarah. My husband has complained that there is this societal assumption that men are dogs who always want sex. And as such several times he's not had his marital status respected. Women he's only been nice to in the past have made comments like yeah, he's in love with me, he'd do anything for me openly in front of him, have sent him messages prompting infidelity, and have even sent him nude images. There's a confidence that they can steal him not only from me but his past relationships because men cheat is such an assumption. His favorite thing to say is the only thing I cheat on is my diet. The ever-present assumption that the end goal of all my interactions is sex. I can't even be friendly to children without someone assuming it's sexual in some way. Dude, same here. I always feel like I should stay 10 feet away from kids since I'm an adult male. People assume I'm a creep. Women always spank or touch my butt. I also have caught women taking pictures of it. I know if the tables were flipped I'd probably be in jail. I used to work in a job in the entertainment industry where I wore a kilt a lot of the time. Couldn't believe how many drunken women thought it was perfectly okay to stick their hands up under it and grab a handful of my junk. Sometimes pretty aggressively too. I quickly stopped freestyling and wore boxers or compression shorts, and this would lead to the grabbers shouting out, "This loser is wearing pants," before mocking me to their pals. Oh, and far too often my kilt was lifted for anyone and I shot to see my junk. Yet when I pointed out how much trouble I would be in for pulling the same crap with them, I'd get looked at like I was being fucking ridiculous. I worked the door at an Irish pub in town in my mid-late 20s and I had to wear a kilt too. I got the same treatment, brother. Had a female manager get into my unlocked phone, send my nudes to herself, and then shared them with the other female manager. I was 24 at the time and both managers were younger. At the time I honestly didn't know how to feel about it, so I just shrugged it off with bravado because they were both attractive, so what the heck. But now I realize that attractiveness isn't a free pass for invading someone's privacy like that. Don't even get me started about being a straight male hairdresser. Dude, I am so sorry. That's horrible. That's not just an invasion of privacy. Sending someone's nudes without the person's consent is straight up illegal. I was once dressed as a priest in a party and a girl, Out of the blue, said I want father's holy staff while trying to grab my crotch. I quickly moved to avoid it and she said, what, are you gay? Well, I am. But just because a guy avoids having his dong grabbed doesn't mean he's gay. Maybe they just don't want to be touched by you, Tracy. Classic Tracy. Dang, reading this thread made me feel so angry and sad for you guys. I'm so sorry this happened to you. No one should ever experience something like what you went through. It doesn't matter who did it or how little the action seems. If it didn't sit well with you, then your feelings are completely valid. Hopefully the system will recognize that men experience the same things women do and must also receive the same amount of support. Wishing you all a happy day, champs. As someone who is pretty tall at 6 feet, whenever I'm at the pub, bar or at a party, I'd almost always get a woman ask me if I had a big dong. Most of the times I just respond saying my girlfriend is a lucky lady, I guess. I even had it happen when I worked as a bartender. Woman asked me this question and bought me a drink and told me to join her and friends after I finished my shift. Just took the money and bought myself some food on my way home after my shift, lol. Late here, 28am in an office predominantly with women. I'm 6 feet 3 inches and athletic. Especially the older ladies will touch my shoulders in a way that's not friendly and more to touch. I also received pretty gnarly comments when I lost a little weight. They also say crap like men are the weaker sex or something like that. I blacked out at work from an irregular heart rhythm and they all said that's such a man thing. That doesn't even cover everything, but it is a start. I'm not really sure if it counts or not, but as a male who used to be extremely overweight, I would always have people, guys and girls, trying to touch my man boobs. It made me self-conscious and uncomfortable and I voiced that, but people continued to do it. They would grab them or hit them and pretty much everything in between. It happened very frequently as well, but I guess nobody saw a problem with it, whether it was because I was a guy or because it wasn't a traditional form of harassment. I still have mine. But I'm sorry people did you like that. Man, that must have sucked. I feel terrible having people just point out that they exist. My male best friend woke up with a girl riding him. When I removed himself politely and asked her to leave, she got mad and asked why he couldn't see him. He had to scream her out of the party and he got crap from his friends for not finishing. He was freaking raped. Had this happened to me, my GF was asleep in the next room and everyone called me a piece of crap for cheating. Thankfully GF remembered her acting weirdly to me, and apparently in my drunken state I had already said that the girl was being weird and to not let her be alone near me. Not really sexual harassment, but this comes to mind. I work in a small retail store. I know a lot of customers by name and I really do like my job. I'm friendly with pretty much everyone. So guess what? If you bring your adorable child into my store and they do something adorable, I'm gonna giggle and interact with the child. I'm a 21-year overweight man who wears headbands, and your child is adorable, but that doesn't mean I wanna frick it. You would be amazed how many mothers will shove their child behind them or ask them to be quiet whenever I acknowledge the child at all. Makes me hella sad in the moment. Wears headbands. Not judging if my first mental image is accurate, but my initial thought was of cat ears or springy things. I have a 5-year-old. She wears a lot of headbands. I'm gay and have been frequently told by women I have worked with over the years that they could fix me. One was a manager. No, there is nothing to fix, and you can frick right off with that. I don't tell a straight guy he hasn't met the right dong yet. Don't tell me I haven't met the right vulva yet. Rant. Maybe not daily, but I'm a gay man and so many women think it's acceptable to touch me or grab my dong. I've also had quite a few people say things like if you tried pee you'd love it, or the worst is when progressive people say things like why do you like men, they're so gross. IDK man, I'm a man who loves men. I don't think men are inherently gross. Was a server at a restaurant. One of the only males there. I'm black and 6 feet 4 and pretty built and was 18-20. The other female servers, ranging from 20-60 years in age, would constantly grab my crotch and smack my butt and make lewd suggestive comments. When I told them to stop, a rumor got spread that I was gay. It didn't stop, and when I went to tell my GM, who was also a female, She looked at me like I was crazy. There's this weird societal expectation for men to be hypersexual beasts when in reality we're normal human beings that take our bodily autonomy seriously just like any other self-respecting female. If I would have did one of the things my female co-workers did to me on a woman who didn't ask, I'd be slapped with a sexual harassment assault charge and labeled a sexual predator. I used to work in a place where an almost 70-year-old woman would constantly harass a guy in his 30s, loudly tell him he's handsome, he's sexy, say that's name, he's my boyfriend, and everyone would laugh. The guy would chuckle nervously every time she had an issue with her computer or couldn't lift something. Hey, name, my sexy boyfriend, I need you. Everyone thought it was funny. I thought it was gross. The guy being hassled was the quiet type and would never say he was uncomfortable, but I could tell as a woman he was. I finally went to my supervisor and told her what this lady was doing was unacceptable, not funny, and if a man was doing it to a woman he would be fired. She tried to tell me it was just a joke, but I was like, yeah, a joke. Well, something must have clicked with the supervisor. BC later that week the old lady stopped catcalling him and never did it again. Treated me like crap until I quit though. Completely unacceptable. Maybe should have gone to your manager again. Girl here. Back in the day when I went clubbing, if a guy friend was being harassed by someone they didn't feel comfortable with, I'd act as GF to them, stand up for them, or tell the girl to get lost. Guys would do the same back. Harassment is harassment, no matter your gender. So sick of guys not being taken seriously when they get harassed or sexually abused. Hey, good on you. I've done this a lot as a guy and also walked up to random girls and asked if they could just help me out. I know this sounds weird, but no girl has ever made me feel stupid about it. It's actually pretty fun being the impromptu rescuer. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.